Good morning, everybody. I'm Gray Hernandez.
And I'm Shane.
And this is Brokers in Focus. So today we're going to be talking about, does a typical election impact the housing market?
So today we're not necessarily talking politics. We're not talking about favored parties or anything like that.
No.
It's just, we're looking at statistical data, going back and seeing, does it truly affect election year?
And I know the people that are going to be watching, you guys have probably been on the sideline. Some people are either holding out to sell or holding out to buy because the election is coming and we don't know who's going to be sitting in the White House, right? So I think some people are on the edge. So for me, I've never really paid attention to election as much as I have now that I'm a real estate agent or that I'm in real estate. But even so, year over year, in Fort Bragg or Fort Liberty, we have our high season, which is what we call the PCS season, and then we have our low season, which is typically during the holidays. You've been doing this for quite some time, so maybe you can enlighten me on, what's happened. For example, I think the last was like 2020, during the 2020 election. Historically, what really happens to home prices when this thing's, I'm going to be asking you on stuff like that.
So, I guess I've been through, 2020, how many is that? About five election cycles in business. And, I personally have seen, the first year I didn't really notice it. I didn't know, I heard my dad talk about it, growing up, but so the first year I was a little numb to it, but after that, the next year and year after that, next election, I could see it. So, so typically, I guess first let's go into do the home sales increase or decrease during the not once someone's elected, but leading up to.
Okay.
So from what they have from the last 9 election cycles is that home sales do take a decrease during the year leading up to the election.
So typically right around like September, October, November-ish?
So during the year, the buyers take a pause and they tend to do their purchases in December and then the year after.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I did read on the HUD that typically right around November, the home sales, it doesn't necessarily drop, but it just kind of takes a pause. And then in December, it's almost like business as usual, but actually it kind of keeps going up and up and up. Historically, because I read the data, every election year, it kind of pauses, and then December and January, it just kind of starts to go up.
Yeah. So the way a lot of people look at it, it's all based on consumer confidence.
Yeah.
And it's just like if any job that you have, if there was some uncertainty and things going on at your job, you probably wouldn't take that vacation or you wouldn't make that purchase until you kind of saw what was going on at work. And it's the same thing that we see with the elections. So not necessarily that they don't buy. Usually what happens is the sales increase the year after the election from all the people that were waiting.
Okay.
So you've got your normal buyers that were going to buy, and then you've got all the people that waited, and so sales increase the year after.
Now, I know that there's a lot of people that's, still on the fence because of the interest rates being so high. Does that even affect what happens after? Back in 2020, it was a little different. So our interest rates were still low and people were, they were fighting over houses back then.
Right.
I don't know what this election is going to happen because considering we're still in the 6 and the 7s.
Yeah. So looking at the last 8 out of 11 election cycles, interest rates have gone down slightly during the election year, but more toward the end. And when I say go down, and I'll step out and probably say we're going to see them go down. But when we say go down, we're talking about a quarter point to a half point.
Yeah. And I noticed, when I started paying attention to the interest rate, typically right around January is the lowest, and then it starts to creep up as spring, summer and then it's at an all-time high by summertime.
Yep. So they know that, a lot of home sales, the wintertime is when it's slower. So interest rates will be lower to stimulate those sales during the winter.
Yeah.
And then, during the kind of end of spring to summer is your peak time of buying, interest rates a little higher.
This episode is brought to you by ERA Strother. ERA Strother is a full-service real estate company where we help buyers and sellers, investors, all alike to recognize your real estate dreams. So if you're going to be on the market then as a seller and you're wanting to put your house for sale, especially this coming election year, things are unpredictable, but just historically, just know that if you put your house on the market right around August, September, especially in Bragg, because PCS season is now over, there's going to be a little bit of a waiting period. So you may not see a whole lot of action as far as tours are concerned, or people just even really wanting to see the house. I mean, is that safe to say? Like right around that time. So September, October, people are just basically over with summertime. Kids are now in school, and with the election happening, don't be surprised if you're not getting any kind of showings. Unless, of course, your house is one of those, location is good, the price is good, the condition is good. I mean, you hit the trifecta. I would say kind of be patient, right, and see what happens after the election. Now, as a buyer, though, what does that mean for you? If you know that the sales are stagnant within those months, that's a good time to put an offer in.
Yep.
Because the sellers are going to be much more willing to negotiate. Because sometimes if they're not getting the best advice from their agent, they're probably going to think something's wrong with their house, right? I mean, I hear that often enough. Like, oh, God, what's happening with my house? How come we haven't sold her? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And for me, I just say, hey, look, these are what's happening in the world. It's okay. Gone are the days where people were freaking overpaying 10, 20,000. Like now the market is actually adjusting itself. A healthy, balanced market is what, 6 months?
Right. 6 months supply. Right.
So tell us about what does that mean? In layman's terms, what is a 6 months or a balanced market? Because I know a lot of people are probably like, well, it's been 2 weeks. I haven't gotten anything. And now election is coming. What does that mean for me? What does that mean for me?
So a 6 month balanced market, is that what you're asking?
Yep.
All right. So at the rate homes are selling and the amount of inventory that there is to be sold should equate to if no other home entered the market today, that in 6 months you would sell out all the inventory that you have available. And we should always carry about a 6 month supply. There's been times, about 2 years ago, that basically we had less than a 30-day supply. That was when the market was just crazy and going off the rails.
Yeah.
And then, you maybe slip into a time where you have over a year's supply.
Yeah.
So, the balance, of course, was somewhere right there in the middle.
Now, depending on what happens in the election, we're about to get stormed. So.
And I'm going to take a minute to thank our sponsors.
Okay.
So, of course, ERA Strother.
And Lindello Mortgage.
So, all right, let's go back to healthy market, balance.
Yes.
6 months. Okay, now I guess next we could talk about
what
happens to you were touching on it a minute ago, but
yes.
what happens to home prices once the election is finished?
over.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, we see them go up. And the reason they go up is because there's more demand. Like I just said, the people are waiting during the election year.
Right.
And then as soon as we get into December, January, whatever, and people decide they want to buy now, they're thrown into the mix with the normal buyers. And that starts to take away from that 6 month supply that we just talked about. And supply and demand, prices go up. So you got people right now that wait, we can see it, but you got people that wait right now.
Yeah.
Trying to see what's going to go on and get that consumer confidence back. And they could get a lower price on a house right now. Whereas once they get,
right,
they start feeling good, and then decide to buy, now you're competing with other buyers and paying higher prices.
Yeah, Right. And so at that point, I don't even think, I mean, of course, interest rate matters, but at that point, honestly, I mean, are you still going to be waiting? I mean, you've been waiting, for 2-3 years now? All that equity you've just kind of thrown out the window, and you're constantly still paying rent. And it's always a good time to buy, I think, in my opinion, not just because I'm a real estate agent, but because I have seen sellers that have invested, 3 years ago, and that have seen equity in their, in their property. So, what else? The decrease of what happens? Would there be a decrease in a percentage around that time as well, or not really? Have you seen those happen?
The interest rate?
Yeah.
Once we get into next year?
Yes. There's a possibility?
Well, what we see is that interest rates, as I said, decrease toward the last few months of the election. And then historically, on the next year, that's where you start to see more fluctuation. It'll just up more drastically. I would say from what I've seen and what I've read, interest rates do tend to slide down during that year after.
Okay. Yeah. Or like the month after the election.
Yeah, and that's where you might see like possibly low sixes to maybe high fives, somewhere in that area.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good thing, especially because we went up to almost 8 in the summertime.
Right.
There's certain ones that were quoted with 8.
Yep.
So,
but it's crazy when you go back and you look at. I wished I had the graphs to put up so that people could see that.
Well, we don't want to bore them to death.
But when you see it, and it's just so predictable to look at, because we can go back, like I said, 9 election cycles. You're talking going back almost 40 years.
So it basically repeats the pattern repeats itself.
And you can see it just repeats it every single time, except around 1980. 1980 was a little
What happened in
anomaly
1980?
In there. Well, interest rates, they were, around 14, possibly 16%.
Yeah.
In every election cycle, you can see that the interest rates dropped, like I said, just a quarter to a half a point. But in 80, they went from like 16 down to 12.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a big jump there. And that's the only cycle that's that way. All the rest are very predictable. Take a moment to recognize Lindello Mortgage, our in-house lender. I've worked with Sylvia many times. Sylvia's really great. She can get it done for you. So feel free to reach out to her, and she'll be glad to answer any questions that you'll have.
So, I hope you guys got a little bit of information. I know for those of you who are still on the fence of either putting your property on the market, or if you're contemplating about, finally taking that leap and into home ownership, my advice is, if this market starts to take a pause, this would be your opportunity to really get some good negotiations, deals, as you guys might say, right around September, October, November, because everyone's kind of on a standstill. But if this is something that you want to do, I would suggest you reach out to an agent like me and, start in the home ownership or investing. Shane, what else can you say about this whole thing?
Well, just kind of wrapping up, if no one out there, has like the perfect advice, or even as a realtor, we're advisors and all that. We don't have all we can do is use the information we have, like right now at this moment, and help you make the best decision we can at this moment.
Right.
That could all change a week from now, or an election from now. Whatever it is. But I've heard people waiting. I'm just waiting for these interest rates to go back down to like 4 or 5%. That ain't going to happen right now.
My
it's
God.
not. They don't make big moves like that unless we have things that are really needed to stimulate the market, like some kind of a catastrophe or a global war or something like that. So as I said, expect that to be maybe a quarter to a half a point. So if that quarter to a half a point is what you're waiting on, then do that. But we're not going to see 2 and 3.
No, those things are gone.
Like
I don't know why people still think that it's going to come back. Honestly, guys, those 2s and those 3s, are we going to see them again? Possibly, but that's not going to happen if you're expecting for that to happen within the next 5 years, I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. So we always say invest now and, reap the rewards, because real estate is not it's not liquid. I mean, you need time to reap the rewards on that. And every year it's just properties are just going higher and higher. I mean, if you look at the prices back in the 70s and 80s, it's not coming back down. It's not. So
Right.
I think that's all we got for today. Do you have anything else to add?
I don't. I mean, we keep talking circles, but I think that's pretty much the gist of it. Just to wrap that up, that the home sales increase after an election cycle. Home prices rise after the election, and interest rates decrease leading up to the election.
Which is crazy, because as the interest goes down, the demand goes up, so now the prices go up.
Right.
So you got to choose your poison. You really got to choose your poison on this one. Yep. And lastly, we want to take 5 West Media. They're the ones that are responsible for all this, the whole podcast, everything. I mean, they offer videography, photography, the whole works. If you guys need media, definitely hit up 5 West. They're the ones that are kind of helping us get the show rolling for you people. Not for you people.
That works. For you guys.
For you guys.
It sounds so like peasants for you people.